Hello Guardians, it is Ebontis here, and this is just going to be kind of a video about my thoughts so far on the Trials Labs with a capture point over the course of this weekend. This is from November 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th, basically reset on Tuesday. And I've played some before the Flawless Pool, kind of on Friday, pretty fresh, a little bit on Saturday. Also played this afternoon as it's now Sunday when I'm recording this, and got to see what it's like post-Flawless Pool. And I gotta say, I don't hate this. And I wasn't sure what I was going to think going in, but I think there's something that the capture zone does to the average player that helps the random solo queues. Because, now granted, I'm a very average player. If there's any skill matchmaking at all going on behind the scenes, I'm not facing elite players, I promise you. Especially at 3 games, it is totally just card-based matchmaking to my understanding. It is card-based and that is it. That's pretty much all they tell you, probably some connection behind the card-based. But for some reason, as a solo player, when I jump into a normal weekend of trials, whether it's 3 stacks or not, there tends to be this weird, everybody's just going to go do their own thing. Where they're trying to do bounties, where they just don't, think the other person's doing the right thing. Nobody tends to stick together. Well, at least. Maybe there's 2 that are like, okay, 2 people tend to be like, this person goes over here, I'm going to stay together. And then there's always one rogue, crazy Leroy Jenkins guy that tends to get his head blown off. More often than not. Every so often you'll get the Leroy who's just like a beast and tears it up. But more often than not, for me, when I'm playing through trials as a solo player, and when freelance is not on, it tends to be not great. Something happens with this capture point when you have 3 random people, don't know each other, don't know at all, and they know where the action is supposed to be. Whether it's the middle capture point, whether it's the 2 other capture points, they're neutral, and there are lanes specifically designed to literally guide you to those 3 things. Now, I don't know if the map is to thank for this, which it probably is, because Endless Veil, which you guys have probably seen in the background footage I'm showing you guys right now, Endless Veil is one of those maps that is actually going to be perfect for this. And honestly, if they're going to bring it back, this map or this style of map is very important probably to the success of the capture zone, because not all maps are going to be this symmetrical. They're not all going to have lanes that are pretty equal, coverage from both sides that are going to be fairly equal. It is hard to have a map that probably fits it better than this. So the map alone, Endless Veil, is probably going to be one thing to thank, because you're either going to focus on the middle lane where most people tend to have the fighting, and then if the capture point moves to the bottom or the outside on the top, you're also going to have some fighting still in that middle lane, or you're going to have the team as a whole head towards the capture point, which most of them tend to do. And I think what this does for an average player, and again, me, average casual, I am in that loop, but the average player who doesn't play with teams, typically, who's trying trials, whether it's to get bounties done, whether it's just to get some reputation, trying to get some engrams in here, just the variation of way the average players think, oh, I got a shotgun, I got to rush in, oh, I got to play back, oh, I think I can hit my snipes. I don't know, there's so many variations of a solo player, good and bad, where you never quite know what they're going to do and what they think they should do. But something about that capture point, to me, it seems, after playing enough of these matches, tends to focus the group who doesn't communicate, and I think it actually really helps. Because, when you take the blowout matches, they still happened a couple times. They happened, but they felt much less this weekend because of, for some reason, the capture point tends to focus the team. Yeah, I got blown out a few times. It happened. But I would say, while I only have 3 wins and I played substantially more games than that, I had a lot more, 2s and 3s and 4s that were closer. And yeah, we didn't pull it out, but things where I was where we had some wins, had some losses, I made some clutch plays, my friend, teammates made some plays, and I was not talking to any of them, but it was just the directional focus towards that capture point. Maybe your team gets the pick, maybe they do, then they focus up, but you get a little trade. There's something weird about this capture point in this map. It is probably the map, I gotta say. It's the more I keep thinking about the map, the symmetricality of this map, I mean, I could probably picture something like Convergence. It's a very long triple-laned map. Being an interesting one for this as well. Would probably see many more snipers on that one, but it would be still a triple lane. You'd have some movement. I think Convergence, you'd obviously also have a lot more flanking, but they would have to be pretty fast. So it would just depend on how it went. But your team would probably have to commit together to either try a flank or try towards the point. And that one's going to be a bigger map, but again, it has very 3 defined lanes. If you take some other ones, they're not quite as defined, not as symmetrical, and the way the neutral zone sits literally like spawn zone versus spawn zone, it seems very equidistant between both sides almost every time. So no side really seems at a perfect advantage. I mean, and they flip the spawn point, so it does seem to balance it out. But it's like the way the neutral zone works in very symmetrical 3-lane maps, I think works well for the capture zone, and it helps the solo players somehow like funnel into the area they're supposed to go more often than not. Not every time, believe me, some people ran off, and occasionally I did it trying to flank, and sometimes it worked. That was the nice thing too. The focus on that capture point is so much by, like, you know, average skill people. If you can get a good enough flank, all of a sudden, if they're not paying attention, or you can catch them kind of hitting both sides, it can actually work a little bit depending on, and then you probably put high skilled players with invisibility in there. People wouldn't even know it would hit them. Trust me, it happened to me plenty where I got flanked. But I think this is something that actually should come back every so often. Just like in my discussion before when I talked about Freelance, I've talked about this on the podcast. If you guys haven't heard the podcast, it's The Last Word, look it up. It's on my channel. It's a lot of places you'll find it. But Freelance for me was always nice because I knew I was always going to face 3 people that were in the same situation I was. I was going to be, or 6 people total. Like, both teams were not communicating. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad. Sometimes my teammates were beasts, sometimes the other teammates were beasts, but I knew it was random every time. It is still unfortunate as a solo player to jump in and face 3s. I wish that matchmaking was just like 3v3, 1v2, 1v2, and solos. Like, that still, I think, needs to be favored heavily, and then you could throw cards in there. And again, I'd still wait a little longer for, like, matchmaking that lean that direction. But generally, for whatever reason, if you have some reasonableness in, you know, who you match against, and again, that's partially luck, but the fact that sometimes, like, the fact that even though I faced a 3-stack, and it may have just been nice that I wasn't facing the beasts because I was playing on in the non-flawless pool, because like Sunday, Friday even still felt the same. Like, there were some good and some bad, and somehow that capture zone focused up the people who don't talk to each other and somehow allowed them to work together. You'd see, like, occasional people popping rifts. They kind of understand that. You'd see some walls pop up that were helpful. You know, the grenades would tend to get focused in the right direction as opposed to just going off random and getting shot. Something about this capture zone and this map, I think, is something they really should consider, and some rotation. And I think that's something that will make trials better. You have specific loot from this mode, and you have specific, you know, also reputation from this mode, which does help your Crucible rank. But between those two things, between the engrams you can get and the specific loot, whether you go flawless or not, Freelance is something I'd like to see every so often. Gives that solo player a true, pure Freelance playlist to, you know, kind of have fun on, you know, every 3rd or 4th weekend. But this capture zone is actually something, with the changes that they made, that to me actually felt pretty good. And it's like, it's hard to put my finger on it, but it was just like the focusing of people who are not talking towards one objective. And it's like, you are 3 people and you have one thing to do. Get that point or kill the team. And it tends to funnel everybody in the same spot. And something about that allowed my solo teams to actually have some decent luck. Even if we didn't win the matches, there were more rounds that I felt were competitive than I think most other random solo non-freelance games that I've played so far. And again, I think the map weights it big, and I also think the capture zone works well because of the shape of the map. But also with the way the lanes are divided up and everything like that. So that's my thoughts on Trials Labs. I just wanted to get that out there I want to see what your guys' thoughts. If you played this weekend, whether it was solo or with the team, what was your experience like in the capture zone? Do you feel like it was too slow? Do you feel like it pushed you in the right direction? Do you feel like it actually helped kind of funnel random people to actually a certain place and things worked well? Or do you feel like it just didn't help anything at all? Because again, everything's going to be a little subjective in all of this, and that's why I'm asking your guys' thoughts. So put those comments below. I want to see your guys' thoughts on this one. If you guys want to find me, it is at Ebontis on Twitter. For streaming, it's either going to be twitch.tv/Ebontis or right here on YouTube. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and hit that alert bell so you guys know when new videos come out or when I'm streaming here on the channel. If you guys want to, you know, support me directly here on YouTube, you can join the channel as a member, get emotes for those live streams and those comments. And if you really want to support me directly, you can find my Patreon link. That one is in the description below. Thank you guys very much. I'll be reading the comments. Have a good one.